So if you haven't met me before, I'm Kelly, the plant-based kitchenista. So welcome. So we are, of course, whole food plant-based, and we cook with everything without oil. So I'll show you some different things that we're going to do today. But this is all about Thanksgiving. These are all different things that you can take with you if you're going to, family gathering party, or you just want to eat at home. But these are great recipes, and I've made them a lot, and it's probably some of my most favorite recipes. So that's what you're getting to see. We'll do another class in December, which we'll do all about holidays too. So we'll do something that a little more festive type of thing versus Thanksgiving food. So you'll have lots of different recipes to be able to try with that. So before I go ahead and get started, I'll introduce Jerry, and I'll hold the microphone for him because Francis said so.
Yep.
No, you need to talk.
Hello. Hear me okay now? All right. Hi there. If you don't know me, I'm Jerry Casados, plant-based nutritionist. Been plant-based now 15 years, and I did it for health reasons. I'm sure many of you heard my story, but heart disease, 3 blood pressure meds, cholesterol med, all off of that, 35 pounds lighter now. So it's just thanks to Dr. McDougall, went to his 10-day living program, and now I teach his program. So, and also if you were on a meetup and you saw that I had a nutrition class yesterday, I had a few people we recognized names that were there, and I did most of it on the microbiome and the starch solution, typical stuff I've give classes on before. So, but we're going to start doing some more of these. And if you have any suggestions, you'd like to see a topic you'd like to hear, diabetes, heart disease, I do a weight loss one, calorie density stuff. So there's a lot of different topics I've done in the past with presentations. So shoot me a text or a chat and let me know what you think. Any questions about nutrition, I'll be glad to answer too. So I'm just going to hang out and enjoy this wonderful food. See ya.
Mic drop. All right. Okay. So first thing we're going to do is going to do a plant-based fruit and nut stuffing. There's all kinds of different stuffings that are out there. And of course, if you remember, your mom probably put eggs in it and, and chicken, and she used to use like gizzards and all kinds of stuff. My mom did. So this one's a really good one. And this is probably my most favorite that I do. So I'm going to go ahead and start. And it's a really easy way to make it. So you could actually ahead of time make the kind of like, I guess, the sauce and stuff that's going to go in it. And then you could store it in the refrigerator the day before and kind of get things ready, and then just heat it up and add it into the breadcrumbs and everything else. So I'm going to add some vegetable broth or stock. You don't have to do that. You could always do water. Then we're going to add in the onions. So I just did red onions. You don't have to do red onions. You could do, any color of onions that you want or flavor. And then while it's cooking, I'm going to go ahead and do the celery. Some stuffings, my mom used to do, the one she used to do with all the eggs and everything else in it, she would do carrots. So you could add carrots, you could add in, all kinds of different vegetables to this, but this is the quick way to get it started. So I'm going to let that kind of saute up. And like I said, I'm going to show you an easy way to do stuffing, because there's a lot of times where you keep adding like vegetable broth or water into it and you're trying to get it really moist. This is a really fast, easy way, because the sauce, or the stock and everything's going to be really hot with everything in it. And then it just kind of like breaks down your breadcrumbs really easy. So I made the breadcrumbs last night. I just took a loaf of bread, Ezekiel, whole wheat, and I just, of course, toasted them in the oven, then chopped them up. So it's all ready to go, homemade breadcrumbs. Because a lot of times when you go to the stores and you do the breadcrumbs, there's oil in them, lots of oil. So that's why I just grabbed a loaf of bread out of the freezer, toasted it up, 350 oven, probably about 15, 20 minutes, kept flipping them, and then just chopped them up and they were all ready to go. All right, so a couple other things. So I'm going to get the sweet potatoes going. So we're doing melting sweet potatoes. So to make things a little bit easier, because I only have an hour, normally I would put these on a baking sheet, let them toast up and do all those wonderful things. I actually steamed them first. So that way I can have the slices ready and it'll caramelize a lot faster for what I need. So I did some shortcuts, but these are things you can do too to make things a little bit easier. The what? No, it's just regular, it's just Ezekiel, and you can find it in all the freezer sections, usually in all the stores. And then it's a whole wheat. But you could do Alvarado, you could do pretty much any of them. Okay, so there's the sweet potatoes all steamed up. So just spread them out. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to add some vegetable broth to it, or stock. If you don't have that, water works just as fine. It's more of it's like a roasting, but it's a steaming roasting type of process. But actually things the edges of your sweet potatoes will get nice and crusty, which is what you're looking for. And if you don't have time to roast them, put them in a pan. This is what I usually do and stuff when I'm home. I'll put them in a pan, and then I will put some vegetable broth stock, a little bit of brown sugar. And you stop her for me, please. We've got an older dog that has kind of gotten a little bit into senility, so she's barking at nothing, but love her to death. She's a great girl. So I have this in here, so I'll just use a little bit of vegetable broth since I have it. And then I'm gonna get these in the oven so they toast up. But yeah, if you put them in a pan, you put some vegetable broth in there, and then you just put it on low, because be careful when you put brown sugar in a pan. The first thing it does is sugar will melt everything off, and then it'll burn really quick. So put it on as low as you can and just let them simmer with a little bit of the brown sugar. And then they come out and they are wonderful. It's almost like a caramelized sugar coating on them. And you don't have to do the brown sugar, but it just makes them really, really good. I just did that for a neighbor that wasn't feeling good this weekend and, or just last weekend, and loved them. Ate them for breakfast, ate them for a bunch of different meals. Okay, so those are in there. I'm not going to add any salt on the recipe if you're following along. The reason why is Jerry doesn't like salt. So if you need salt afterwards, go ahead and feel free to add the salt. Yep. So all of our vegetable broth anyway is fat-free, of course, and low sodium. So we try to stay with that too. All right, so we've got the onions and the celery. So just kind of keep cooking your onions until they become a little bit translucent. And then they'll be ready to go. All right, so then Brussels sprouts. So we're gonna be moving along. So sorry if you really like things in order, but I'm gonna have to I need to get some things in the oven. So what I did the same thing, because don't have a lot of time and an hour and stuff to be able to roast up the Brussels sprouts and the butternut squash. So I did the exact same thing. I steamed them. So they're still all like al dente, but they're soft. So they're all ready to go. So you've got the butternut squash in the cubes, and then I quartered up instead of half it up because I want them all like the same size. So I quartered up the Brussels sprouts. So they're all ready to go. So let me get them into a pan. Same thing, baking sheet, lots of roasting. So if you do have a double oven, best thing. So I'll just kind of pull out the Brussels sprouts. They got a little bit mixed in together, but that is okay, because I want to add a little bit of sauce and stuff to the Brussels sprouts. So just kind of dump them out. They smell good. You could actually just like this, a little bit of like if you wanted some sweetener or something like that, or even just a little bit of salt and pepper, it needs to be ready to go already. If it vegetable broth, because it tends to burn off pretty quick, just add, if you want to have it cook a little bit longer, add some more water, or just add a little bit more vegetable broth. Okay, so if I just separate these out, get most of the butternut squash over in one area. Okay, so if you're following along on the recipe, so the butternut, basically the Brussels sprouts, there's really not anything to add other than just like vegetable broth or stock or water. But for the butternut squash and stuff, you're adding a little bit of vegetable broth, maple syrup, and ground cinnamon. So let me grab that. I'm not going to add all my maple syrup. And if you don't want to use maple syrup, you could use date paste, you could use agave, or you could do nothing at all. So maybe like a little monk fruit sweetener. So I'm just going to add just a little bit of a drizzle and just kind of try to stay right on the butternut squash. Doesn't need much, because I'm going to keep the rest when I taste it and see if maybe it needs a little bit at the end. So just maybe a little bit of sweetness. Same thing with the cinnamon. Just a light coating of cinnamon. And the nice thing about it, since I steamed the vegetables ahead of time, it's not going to take very long for these to roast up and get really pretty. A little bit of that cinnamon there. All right, ready to go to the oven. And this is something too, if you wanted to, so like when you're, make sure this doesn't burn off here, but when you're trying to get things ready, and there's always a lot of cooking around Thanksgiving. So these are things that you could do, like the stock and things like that for your fruit nut stuffing. You could get the vegetables steamed ahead of time, the sweet potatoes steamed ahead of time. Nobody's going to know the difference. They're just going to tell you how wonderful everything is. All right, just add a little bit more. Put this in the oven. And I like Brussels sprouts are one of those things that people either really like or they don't like. So if you don't like Brussels sprouts, you could actually substitute in like cauliflower or like broccoli or all kinds of different vegetables that you really like. So if Brussels sprouts is not your fan or your favorite, used to despise them when I was young, but I really like them now. And Jerry used to tell me, don't like Brussels sprouts. But now that I keep them small and I'll put them in salads and things, it's almost just like cabbage. So as long as you like cabbage, it's good. All right, so we got the Brussels sprouts going, everything's going there. Now let's add the rest of the ingredients for in here. So we got the celery, now we're gonna add the apples. So fresh apple, doesn't matter, whatever your flavor is, but try to find one that's really crispy. So like your Honey Crisp or can't even remember some of the other, Pink Lady, those type of things are really crisp right now. So add that in. That's what makes it so good. This is actually like a sweet, savory type of fruit and nut stuffing. And it was one that when I first made it, because Jerry was very used to a different type of stuffing with his family and mom. And when I first made it, he was kind of wrinkled the nose at me. But now one of his absolute favorites. This is one he loves all the time. Okay, and then we've got sage. So just ground sage, nothing better than sage. Don't get to use it much unless it's around the Thanksgiving time, but it's a great spice to always have on hand. And then there's a whole bunch more. So you're going to notice that so I put them all together. So you got parsley, poultry seasoning. Even though it says poultry, it doesn't have anything that is around poultry. It's just used for poultry seasoning. But of course, it's all your different ingredients. And it's got ground nutmeg, which is strange. Most of you wouldn't think about putting ground nutmeg in a stuffing, but because of the apples, you definitely want that. So we're going to put those in there. It smells delicious. And I didn't have the fresh parsley. I didn't want to buy a whole head of fresh parsley and stuff. So I just did the dried parsley. So it just says, 3 tablespoons fresh parsley, same thing. I just used 3 tablespoons of the dried. And when you start stirring this up, I wish you guys had what Emerald used to say, a smell-o-vision. It smells really good. It smells like Thanksgiving in here. So just a real quick look. So you're just starting to get all the seasonings in there, but you can smell the apples and everything else cooking. It's wonderful. And always feel free to add more apples, less apples, any of those kind of flavors that you're looking for. All right, so those are going in. So we've got black pepper, salt. I already got that in there. So we're doing that. Then I'm going to add the maple syrup and vinegar, which I know is going to sound strange. Guarantee you though, if you try this, you're going to like it. Dump the apple. So the other thing, and I don't know if I shared it on here, but this is the real tip. So when you grab your recipe and stuff, write this down. So at the bottom, you'll see the 3 cups of vegetable broth. And I did this on a class and stuff a couple weeks ago. The best thing to do is instead of adding the 3 cups of vegetable broth into and it's just like a regular cold or room temperature that you have, into the breadcrumbs, I'm going to add it into all the vegetables. So it's going to be sauteing in there, getting a little thick. And then I'm going to add all of it into the breadcrumbs. So then you get all this moisture. And if you need a little bit more, then you can always add the room temperature vegetable broth. But making it hot like that, mix it up so quick and breaks down your breadcrumbs, and you get that really luscious, like stuffing flavor, which is really good. Okay, so got that going. So we do have a sauce that's going to be on the melting sweet potatoes. You could do sweet potatoes just plain, just the way they're roasting up. They're absolutely wonderful. You could bake them up. You could add, different fillings into them. There's so many different ways of doing sweet potatoes. I'm not a big fan of the marshmallows and all that, but I know that you can always add those too. But what I'm going to do is melting sweet potatoes. So in a small little dish, just a saucepan, just as I'm getting things ready for everything, I've just got the maple syrup. So same thing. You could do date paste. You could do agave, whatever you have at home. Thanksgiving tends to be a lot of maple syrup and different things like that. So just invest in a little maple syrup or date paste. And then toasted pecans. So I already toasted the pecans up. All you're doing on toasted pecans is put them on a baking sheet. You could put parchment paper down first or just the baking sheet. And then you toast them at 350 for probably about 5 to 8 minutes, but be careful depending on your oven because they can burn really quick. So I'm just going to add those in there. And that's all ready to go. So if it gets too thick, feel free, just like what I'm going to do. Depends on your maple syrup. Just add a little water to it. Is your loaf in your cookbook? You're talking about the Thanksgiving loaf, Mona? Yes. If it's just actually email me because I don't think it is in there. The regular meatloaf is in there, but the one I made for Thanksgiving is not with all the flavors. I was going to put it in the new cookbook. I just haven't had time to even start on it. Just email me at Kelley, Kelley at plantbasedkitchen.com and I will send it over to you. It's a really good one. Okay. So you can see there, the apples are all nice and sauteed, but they're not soft or they're not mushy. You've got all your other flavors in there. And like I said, if you wanted to add carrots, anything else, you sure can do that. All right, so we've got everything in there. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to add the 3 cups of vegetable stock. I'm going to eyeball it a little bit. And for some reason, if it doesn't get really thick, and it's probably not, but sometimes it will thicken up depending on if you've got like a really thick vegetable broth or stock. But if it doesn't and you want it a little bit thicker, you can always add a little bit of flour. But because you're adding it to the breadcrumbs and everything, you really don't need it. But sometimes I've seen individuals do that. All right, so breadcrumbs. All nice and good and ready to go. Smells good. I'll put these up here. We've got to add the balsamic vinegar, which I know sounds strange, but balsamic vinegar and apples and all the different flavors, especially like with cranberries or goji berries, is really good. And then you get the maple syrup. So you're going to get a little bit of that sweetness, but also a little bit of that tartness. It's all going to saute up together. Sometimes when I do this recipe, I get feedback like, I'm not sure about that balsamic vinegar. It's really good. Promise. I promise you will like this. Okay, there we go. All right, we'll set that to the side for a minute because I want to heat this up and get it boiling. Now the Brussels sprouts going. We've got everything with that. Now I want to do the dessert. This is a really cool dessert, and it's actually almost like you could do it one pot. So if you could do it like one, baking dish, you could. I'm actually going to just do it in 2 separate bowls and then add it to the baking dish, but it's a really easy one to make. And it's like a pumpkin flavored, like a cake part. And then at the bottom, all the caramelization happens at the bottom. And so it's almost like a caramel pumpkin type of like a sauce, almost like a hot fudge type of a thing, but it's caramel. And I do have one that's just like this too, but for chocolate. So when it comes around to like the Valentine's Day, if you want the chocolate one, I can send it to you too. It's really good. It's like a fudge cake. It's wonderful. It's almost like what is it they call it? Those molten cakes when you cut into them and all the goo comes out and everything. This is the chocolate one's just like that. Okay, so if we grab a couple bowls, kind of get things out of the way here. Here's the ingredients. So we're going to do a dry bowl and then a wet bowl. And then and I'll show you how to add it together. So we are going to do, so in a meeting bowl, so we're going to stir together the flour. So just got regular flour. So it's basically, it's a white whole wheat. So it's what is it? Not Dr. Bragg's. Who's the guy? The guy that does all the grains and everything. Bob's Red Mill. So I'm adding that in, and you'll see it says 1 cup plus 3 tablespoons. I know it's weird, but just do 3 cups and 1 tablespoon. It'll work. Okay, then you've got your baking powder. So I've got baking powder, a little bit of sea salt if you want to add that. Then I'll add the raw cane sugar. Then I got cinnamon and nutmeg. So you're going to get those really nice, type of pumpkin things and cloves. So that's all gonna go in there. Nothing better than cloves, nutmeg, cinnamon, all those wonderful flavors. Okay, so just give that a quick stir because you want to make sure that's all through the flour. This is one, once you make it and you take it somewhere, it's probably going to be one of those ones you're going to want to double the recipe. It's that good. And it's that easy. Okay, so get the baking powder, sea salt, all the sharp spices, so everything's there. So that's ready to go. And then we're going to do in the pumpkin puree because that's where your pumpkin comes in. So make sure you get the pumpkin puree. There is like a pumpkin pie mixture. And if it's all mixed with like the milks and things like that to where you can just pour it into the dish is not what you want. You want just definitely the pumpkin puree. Because you're only going to be used a certain amount of the can, like the small can, freeze the rest. You know, write it on a baggie and say pumpkin puree. And then when you get ready to make it again, just pull it out, unthawed, and away you go. So we're going to add the pumpkin puree in there. But you can definitely freeze it. Sometimes I forget that I have it in the freezer and I'll open up another can. So I have probably 2 or 3 bags that are in the freezer already. But when I get ready to make it for taking it for Thanksgiving, I'll pull it out and away we go. Okay, so pumpkin puree's in there. Make sure so the non-dairy milk. So I just got soy milk. You could use almond milk, whatever flavor you want. Just give that a little whisk. Boiling up nicely for the stuffing. Okay, so that's all mixed together. Got vanilla. So I have a clear vanilla. So I'm just using the clear vanilla because I wanted to use that up. I had it for a couple other recipes. Smells, tastes just the same. A little bit of vanilla in there. You could also use vanilla powder, so 1 for 1. So I know sometimes everybody wants to, like Chef AJ will stay away from vanilla because of the alcohol in it. So you can do that. Vanilla together, pour wet ingredients into the dry ingredients. I forgot sugar. You can tell I put it in the fridge last night, so we'll just make that. Lots of little dishes tonight. Mix it up. Nice, smells good. Then we've got the topping ingredients. So let me get this tray out of here. Looking good. Okay, so wet ingredients to the dry ingredients. And I've cheated. So it's one of those recipes, if you don't want to have 2 bowls and do all that, just kind of mix it all up into 1 bowl. It still works. And then I try not to slop it everywhere, but I'm just going to do a nice little stir. If it seems really thick, you could always add just a little bit of the non-dairy milk, so a little bit of the soy milk or something like that. Because it really depends on the pumpkin puree and your flour and everything else that you're using. Sometimes it'll get really, really thick. I'm going to add just a little bit, so let me grab some. Just a touch. This smells so good for the stuffing. The apples and all the spices. Okay, here we go. Then let me grab the baking dish. You can do it in you want to do a small baking dish. So if you have a square one, that actually works too. spoon a little bit, dish it out. If we mix this up, we don't want to lose any of the good ingredients. No parchment paper. You're talking about for the cake? No. Does the stuffing freeze well after cook? Yes. You can actually, so yes, you could actually do it if you want after you cook it, and it will heat up really well. Or if you want to do it before you actually do all the cooking on it too, you can do that too. So just spread it out like this. Just make it even. Like I said, make sure you get all the yummies off. Everywhere. All right, so in a separate bowl, if you want, then you go ahead. Let me just grab a different one. I'll just grab a small little bowl. You're going to add the topping ingredients. So I know that until a little bit of moisture into the sugar. Raw cane sugar. Mix that in. I put this in the fridge last night, so that's why it's sticking together like that. But you could do like a monk fruit sweetener or something like that. The only thing is like the brown sugar, I wouldn't substitute because the brown sugar actually gives you that caramelization. So I'm going to add that in there. And then toasted pecans. Just mix it up. Make sure you get, like if you've got, especially the brown sugar, make sure you don't have any of the big lumps. And if you don't like pecans, you could do walnuts, you could do almonds, all kinds of different things in there. Or mix it up, do all of them. But pecans always reminds me, because it's like pecan pie and things, always reminds me of Thanksgiving. I keep them on hand, but it's the one time I really use probably more pecans than I ever do. Okay, so we got the toppings in there, so we're going to spread it over the batter. Just try to give it as even as you can, because then when it actually does all the caramelization, then you've got caramelization over, when you cut everything out, you've got caramelization over every piece. Over there. All right. So now this is the part. This is the interesting part. So let me grab the water, hot water. So you're going to add, so you'll notice on there, so you've got the hot water. We're going to add 1.5 cups hot water. This is 3/4 cup here. Three-quarters cup. So 1.5. And you don't mix it. Don't mix it in or anything else. Just let it set. And then you're going to put it in the oven. Just like this. And so you'll notice that like the brown sugar and the pecans and everything else are floating on top, and you've got the batter on the bottom. It's hard to tip. I don't want to tip it too much. So that's what it looks like. So now it's going in the oven. And we'll show you what happens. All right. Take this off. Okay, so this nice, so you can see it's turned really brown because of all the different flavors and the spices and things that are in there. So it's a little bit darker than the actual vegetable broth was, but it smells wonderful. All right, so you grab your breadcrumbs, and I'll go ahead and add in the toasted almonds, cranberries or goji berries, whatever you have. You could use if you've got, like if you see cherries or any of those. I wouldn't recommend raisins. You definitely want something that's a little bit more tart, so like goji berries or cranberries are really good. Dried sweet cherries are really good too. Whatever you have. Okay. I'll hold it off for a second. And then what I like to do, get in there with my hands or a spoon. And it's a little warm. You just kind of just start playing with it a little bit. And if your bread soaks up, because you're going to have different breads, so if the bread soaks up all the moisture, I still have some in here that I'm going to add, then feel free to always keep some extra like vegetable broth or water around. Because what you want to do is you want to make sure that it's like you don't have any dried cubes of bread in there. It just doesn't make the stuffing good. So you want to make sure it's all real moist and all the flavors are mixed in there. Yes, you sure can. You can do any type of, this one's actually not a gluten-free, it's Ezekiel. It's a whole wheat, but you could actually do any kind of breads, the gluten-free. So all the different breads that you have out there, anything makes a good stuffing. I was just looking for, yeah. Let me just kind of, since it's really hot, as you can see the steam rolling off. And this is where, if you want the salt and pepper and things like that, this is where you could add it right here. Really get in there and mix it in there. I'm gonna just do a little bit more. So just like I said, just depending on your bread, sometimes the bread will soak it up. So just add, like I said, just a little bit of water, vegetable stock, broth, whatever you have. So I don't know about you. I'm one that I like, I like the breadcrumbs and everything else, but I definitely like them where they're soft and it's, you've got that crusty on the outside of the, when you're baking it. So you've got the roasting top, the crust on the top and stuff, but inside it's all nice and gushy. It's almost like mashed potatoes, like we have a little bit on the top and that's crusted out. And then you've got everything else that's nice and soft. So just get in there and mix it and just find if you've got any chunks of bread, just kind of get in there and separate them. So every once in a while, you're going to get a piece of crust or something that just does not want to soak up the moisture. There's one right there. I said, I wished you guys had smell-o-vision. He had a great idea back, I don't know, 15, 20 years ago. Get smell-o-vision going. I mean, everything is getting to be where it's streaming on TV, so why not smell-o-vision? Okay, get these off. Then just grab, you could put, you can put parchment paper, because I know that was a question earlier. You can put parchment paper in your baking dish. You don't need to. So I'm just going to take it, baking dish like this. And I am going to dump it in. Doesn't that look good? And if you really love cranberries and like want even more cranberries or any of those or almonds, anything else, you can definitely just add more apples. If you've got, one of the things you could do too is if you've made the cranberry sauce, you could actually add the cranberry sauce in this too, which is really good. Done that before. And then just make it all even. But don't, like what I do usually is I still make it where it's still loose on the top because it just makes it prettier when it starts crusting. Okay. And I have made a mess everywhere. On the top, you could add more cranberries, you could add more almonds, you could add, whatever you want, some breadcrumbs, something like that, but it's ready to go. Doesn't that look good? All right, so we have this. So we've got parchment paper. The reason why I do this is then you don't, because like aluminum foil, you're putting it over the top. That way you're not having the aluminum that soaks into your food. So that's a good way to do it. I'll take this off here in a little bit because I'm going to want the top to get crusted. Just to get it started, cook it all the way through, but truthfully, with everything that's in it, it's pretty well cooked because it doesn't have eggs or anything like that that you have to worry about. All right, I have got too much in the oven, so I need to get my Brussels sprouts out. And in goes the stuffing. Okay. Let me clean up just a little bit. I have everything everywhere. Yeah, so some of my recipes on the website, we definitely, when you join one of the cooking classes, you get access to the Google site. So there's all the recipes there. I've been talking about I've got an older cookbook that's out there that's probably 4 or 5 years old. Been trying to work on a new one. It's just been like, if you joined us early and stuff, Mona and I were talking, works crazy right now. So I work in a healthcare organization with electronic medical records. And so we're just like all healthcare organizations, acquiring, affiliating, partnering, buying, building. So it's been a little crazy. Okay, I'll just let that sit there for a few minutes. So the Brussels sprouts, let's grab another hot pad. Are all nice and ready to go. So we will finish this up, but I want to get the cranberry sauce going because that is one of the best parts of Thanksgiving is cranberry sauce. Some people will disagree with me, I would think, but I love it. All right, so we're going to do fresh cranberries. You can also freeze your cranberries. So if you get a bunch and you want to use them next year, just freeze them. Because sometimes there's been a couple times I've gone to the store, especially during COVID, and you couldn't find them. So it's nice to have them frozen like that. Help us with Penny, please. All right, so then same thing, so I'm going to put this in here. So I've got the cranberries. All right, we're going to add the raw cane sugar. We're going to add orange juice. So this is just this is basically an orange, and then it has I have a little bit of the rind and stuff, just a little bit. So that's all ready to go. Oranges right now, not so good. They're a little tart. And then I have ginger, fresh ginger. So I always talk about in my classes, I freeze ginger. So you can just freeze it just like a piece like this, and then you can use your microplanes, and then you can just grate it up. So the good thing about it is I have a whole nother, it's like a big bag, but I just took out little pieces and stuff. You don't have to scrape off all the peeling or anything like that. Just start grating it. So we're going to do 6 tablespoons. So we're going to do quite a bit. So I'll grate for a few minutes. If like part of the peeling comes off and you do see it, you can always pick it up and stuff, but it actually it does really, really well with a microplane. And it comes down to like nothing. And like here, like I said, there's sometimes every once in a while you'll see a little skin piece. So I just pull it like that and then go right back to grating. I used to when I was a kid, didn't like cranberry sauce. It was like, yuck, that and Brussels sprouts and things like that. Now it's one of my favorite things. All right. Dump that off to the side. Cake's already bubbling. Looks good. All right, so we got this going. Let me grab, I always lose my spoons. There we go. So this, when it starts going, you're going to notice that the cranberries are going to start breaking down. And to break them down a little bit more, just take your spoon that you're, oh my gosh, that smells good. It's like cranberries, and then you've got ginger and orange and all the flavors. So then you just kind of, once it starts really cooking and they start breaking down a little bit, just take your spoon and then just kind of smash up the cranberries to the side of the pan. And that's pretty easy to do. And another way that you could do this too is if you've got a really, really good sweet orange, you could cut up chunks of the orange. So instead of, wasting all the inside, everything, you could just cut up some chunks and put that in there. You could also put in like some pecans. I've seen all kinds of different things done to cranberry sauce. This is a simple base, and then you can actually put anything and everything that you want to it. Does the ginger? No, ginger does not overpower it. So like just right now, if I would taste it without, and even cooking and all coming together, it's really good because you got the ginger flavor and stuff, but you've got a little bit of, you've got the raw cane sugar, and you've got, then you get your cranberries, which are really tart, all breaking down. So it all mends together. It's really, really good. But bringing up a point is what I always say is, you can hear them popping. They'll start popping on you, but always start low. So even on the ginger and stuff, depending on where you're kind of like, I'm not sure if I want that much ginger or not, start with like a tablespoon or a teaspoon first, and then taste it as you're kind of going along like this. And then if you like it, just add a little bit more. You can keep grading and adding more, but you can't take away if you add too much. So always add less and add more, even with my recipes, because my palate may be different than yours. So I always recommend start low and add to it. You can feel they're popping like, okay. Brussels sprouts. Let's go back. We've got the pumpkin pie cobbler. We've got the plant-based stuffing going. We have the cranberry sauce going. We are in good shape. All right, so we've got toasted pecans. Turn it down a little bit because it's going to pop at me. It's the nice thing about cranberries. They just smell good. And then when you get them going and you get your house, so like my house now smells like, not like Brussels sprouts, but it smells like cinnamon and, maple syrup and cranberries and stuffing and all those kind of things. It smells really, really good. And I'm going to go ahead and take the paper off just so it cooks. All right. So we've got the Brussels sprouts ready. So I'm going to let me just grab another pan so I don't mess up my pretty bowl. And I'm going to put things in. Nice thing about parchment paper like this, you grab your parchment paper, and there might be a little liquid on it, but that's okay. And then you go like that, and you dump it. And then pretty much just a little bit of soap and water on your baking dish, and you're ready to go. It's clean. Put that over there. All right, so we're going to combine, so we got the Brussels sprouts, the roasted butternut squash. That is so good. And the butternut squash has a little bit of that cinnamon and a little bit of the maple syrup. But there's a couple Brussels sprouts in there that got a little bit of that too. It's really good. Yum. Even Jerry will be happy. Those Brussels sprouts. Okay. Then we have some pecans. Toasted pecans. You don't have to add pecans if you don't want to. You could also do almonds or walnuts. But as you can see, color-wise, pretty. Cranberries or goji berries or dried cherries is always a good one too. If you get like a little chunk of your cranberries or the goji berries are expensive, but I had a whole big bag of them, so I was using them up before I went into the cranberries. But just like right now, without doing anything else, how pretty that is. You've got the kind of the burgundy colors, and you've got the browns of your pecans, and then you've got the greens and the oranges. Doesn't that look good without doing anything else to it? So just a little bit of sweetness, just a teeny bit. And stir it up. So you're going to have cinnamon, a little bit of sweetness. You got the tartness with the cranberries. You've got the nice flavors of the butternut squash, which tends to be sweet after you roast it. Then you got you've got your Brussels sprouts, which have a really good kind of a cabbage flavor. Nothing better. I could have put it just in the regular serving bowl, but since I always take pictures after we do the class, I didn't want to get it all over the place. So it's all ready to go. Get some of the red. And if you wanted to, you could add just a little bit of cinnamon because I have a little bit of cinnamon left. Just a teeny bit. And there is those Brussels sprouts and butternut squash. Doesn't that look good? It is so good. It's sweet, a little tangy. So that's ready to go. All right, let me heat up. I'm going to heat up for my melting sweet potatoes. So that's just the maple syrup and the pecan. So that'll be ready to go here in just a minute. Go ahead and get the sweet potatoes out. So I'm just, like I said, I'm just going in now because they've been cooking long enough that I'm just squishing the cranberries. Whoops. So I squished one onto the floor. And if you want like a really creamy cranberry sauce, this is where you could get one of the little hand blenders out, and then you could just blend it up. You could put it into a what am I trying to say? A Vitamix. You know, there's all kinds of different things. I like it chunky, so I'm going to leave it chunky, but I'm going to make sure that I get all the little cranberries popped. And then, of course, I'm going to show it to you warm. But one of the things that, you usually do with cranberry sauce, of course, is cool it down in your fridge. So this would be one that I'd recommend making the day before. Plug. Make sure I got everything. That is good. And the ginger does not overwhelm it. But like I said, if you, oh my gosh, I got cranberries all the way popped to the end of the cabinet over here, countertop. If you're not a big fan of ginger, then add really little or don't add any at all. But this is really good. It's like sweet, tart, all the good flavors. I grab a smaller dish since I don't need a big dish to show it. Gosh, it smells good. And this is where you could add, if you've got a little bit of greenery or something like that, that you could add to it. But there is your really thick cranberry sauce. Orange ginger cranberry sauce. Yum. Okay, that's ready. That's ready. Let me grab a big bowl for sweet potatoes. And I have cranberry sauce everywhere. Cranberries are all over the place. My goodness. Jerry's like, if you could actually see this part of the kitchen, it's a tornado because like all the dishes and everything else are sitting over there. Okay, so let me grab a spatula. Just gotta start grabbing your sweet potatoes out. And feel free to let them cook as long as you want. So if you want, you just, when you're cooking them and maybe they're not as brown as you would like them to be, then go ahead and just add a little bit more vegetable broth, vegetable stock, or water, and then just keep roasting them up. But these, very sweet without doing anything to them. Yes, so par cooked. I actually did. I steamed them. So the sweet potatoes, just because I did, with an hour to trying to get everything done, I just steamed them ahead of time. And you can tell that the slices are, nice little slices. So I just steamed them to where, and then just long as a knife could go through them, and then put them in the oven. So then I put them with vegetable broth, vegetable stock, and then roasted them out. And the cool thing about it, see, parchment paper goes away. Separate these all out. Cooked. And then you grab your melting sweet potato sauce, shake it up a little bit. There is your melting sweet potatoes. Don't those look good? Jerry loves these. They're so good. But he also eats sweet potatoes. Just if I bake them up or roast them up, he eats them just plain too. There's that. Nice orange color, really bright orange color, butternut squash a little bit less, but you've got the reds, the greens, the nuts, the fruits, all those kind of things that are in there. So get this out of the way. All right. Move some stuff out of the way because we need some room. We'll let that go for just a couple minutes. And then we'll pull it out and show you what those look like as I wipe down cranberry sauce from everywhere. Had no idea when I was popping the cranberries and stuff that I was going to end up with them everywhere. That's crazy. Obviously, Penny is smelling the food, the one that entertained you with a few barking songs. Over this way. Yeah, there you go. Looks. I could just like a fork right now. A bite of that, a bite of that, or like when you say get everything good on your fork and you just kind of like add all this together, you add this together and this, even if this is warm. Wonderful. I put my milk back in there, then I'm going to grab out the stuffing. That's it could use probably about another 5 minutes or so, but just be able to get this out for the course. I want to make sure I do that. Don't need ginger. Let me try the cake real quick. So I'm going to show you the cake, but I'll probably put it back in the oven just a few minutes after the class. Get out of here. It probably only needs about 2 or 3 minutes more to show you. See, let me just do this one. So there is all your cake. So that's your pumpkin cake. And you can see that the nuts and stuff, but the nuts stay on the top, but usually some of them will go to the bottom. And then see all this caramelization here? This is all like a pumpkin cinnamon flavor. So when you cut into the actual slices and then you use some of like the soy ice cream or one of your favorite, types of vegan products and stuff, with this, there is nothing better. This is a delicious dessert. And even the next day, so this kind of gets a little bit thicker the next day and it cools down. It still comes up and it's just like this caramel finish. And it's like a one pan, one thing type of a deal. Doesn't that look wonderful? So it just needs just a few minutes more right here on this side, but all ready and stuff. It's all crusted up and ready to go. All right, so let me get my hand down here. So we have, look at this. Jerry's like, it's a wonder he hasn't shut down the camera and grabbed a fork because this is like dinner time for him. And this is like one of his, any Thanksgiving. He loves it when I do. And sometimes like when we were doing all the face-to-face classes and stuff, I would do this. I would do Thanksgiving, all kinds of different recipes. I don't know, 4 or 5 classes in a month. He loved it. He never got tired of it. So melting sweet potatoes. Don't those look wonderful? Yum. Then you've got your roasted butternut squash and Brussels sprouts. And then you got your cranberries and your pecans in that. So a little bit sweet, a little bit tart, all those flavors together. Then you have right now it's hot, but it's your cranberry sauce with the oranges and ginger, which is a really good one. But like I said, you could put apples in it. So if you wanted to saute some apples, orange chunks, pecans, all that, I've seen all kinds of different things add to cranberry sauce, but this is an easy one that you could do and add everything else to it. Then we have fruit and nut stuffing. If I just took the spoons away. Oh, hot. But the apples and the cranberries and the sauces and everything else, really, really good. And then of course we have your pumpkin pecan cobbler. So then with the caramelization sauce on the bottom. So there you go. There is Thanksgiving basically. And I'll be doing the cranberry sauce and dressing plus that cake. Try it all. Let me know. Let me know what you think. But think about, just like what I was giving you some tips and tricks. Do your sauce if you want for your stuffing ahead of time the day before. Do your cranberry sauce the day before if you want to. You can par cook your vegetables, like steam them, and they're all ready to go. And then you're pretty much just heating things up, especially if you don't have a lot of oven space, those type of things. So think about like ways that you can shortcut things and not have 17 things that you need to go into your oven. So this is a quick, easy way to do all that. So hope you guys enjoyed. Jerry is, I see kind of drool coming down the side of his mouth right now. And as Mona would say, there's Jerry's bowl. He'll probably put some stuff around it and away he goes. So the only thing he would say is, where's the mashed potatoes and the gravy? But I figure you guys know mashed potatoes and gravy, we're good. So wanted to show you these type of dishes to take. You could take any of these to home, to a party, to family and stuff. I guarantee you'd be the hit of the party, especially this one. So happy Thanksgiving, everybody. Talk to you soon. Love you. Happy holidays, which is hard to believe, but happy holidays.
Thank you. Happy holiday.
You too. Bye.